Good morning, everyone. We are live at the Alshech synagogue, learning the beautiful Torah of Rav Musar Alshech. May we merit to be zocha to understand the depths of the Torah with the Pirush of Rav Alshech on this beautiful morning in Tzfat. So we're up to Parashat Ekev, and Ekev is all about the reward and the consequences that we receive from Hashem by listening to His mitzvot. And we're going to be going into the exact details of what Hashem is telling us and what Moshe is telling us about Hashem's ways and all the big chidushim that Rav Moshe is going to tell us that are hidden in these psukim. So let us dive right in. V'haya Ekev tishme'un. It will be because of your listening, or as a consequence of your listening to et hamishpatim ha'ele, to the Hashem's commandments, ushmartem, and you will observe them, v'asitem otam, you'll do them. Then what will happen? Hashem will give us a reward. V'shamar Hashem elokecha lecha et habrit, you will guard the covenant that He made, v'et hachesed, and the kindness asher nishba la'avotecha, that He swore to your fathers, to your forefathers. Says Rav Moshe, let's get into the questions. V'haya ekev tishme'un. We have to understand what the word v'haya means. Because Rav Moshe says on a simple pshat level, v'haya means if it will occur, if this, it seems to be something referring to what? It's referring to something that is a newly occurring situation. And here we don't have such a situation where we say it's like a new thing, that the reward for the mitzvot are given to those who observe them. So therefore, if it will come to be, when it will be. When it talks about Avram telling his wife Sarah that when the Mitzrim will see you, tell them that you're my sister. So there, yitchadesh ki amru ve'ishto zot. Then what will happen is they'll say, you're my wife, so I want you to tell me you're my sister. The fact that the reward is given to those who observe the mitzvot isn't a new thing. It should just say that as a consequence for listening, there will be reward. What is the v'haya? And obviously, v'haya, we know there's a midrash on v'haya and everything, so we're going to see what the v'haya comes in this context. And Rav Moshe will actually give us a break and teach us something before he gets into all of the questions. That's nice. And he has just one more question until we get into some kind of discussion. Amro Ekev. The fact that Hashem is telling us that in response or as a result of doing mitzvot, we will get reward. That seems to be promoting doing mitzvot for the sake of reward. However, we know, as the Mishnah says, do not be like servants who serve the master for the sake of receiving reward. So, hu ashulokama amar Tana. It is not like the Tana says, al tiyu kavadim, etc. So therefore, vehen al ze pakchu eineim rabotenu zal. The rabbis had this question as well. V'al shanato misachar l'lashon ekev. There's another question here that the rabbis ask, is why it doesn't say v'haya sachar tishme'un. That would be the normal Hebrew word for reward, is sachar. Here we're saying as a reward for keeping the mitzvot, but we use a word ekev, which is a strange term to be used for this meaning. And therefore, the rabbis in the Midrash say a different explanation, and they then take note of the word ekev, and they say shehu ma she'adam dash ba'akevo. The word ekev actually means the heel. A heel, ekev is a heel, and we say that the mitzvot, we get reward specifically for mitzvot that people disregard as insignificant, and they're trampled on mitzvot. So even for those mitzvot, if you keep them, and specifically those mitzvot because they seem to be less significant, if we take Hashem's word seriously, and everything Hashem tells us we do, then we will receive rewards. That's the Midrash Tanchuma's explanation on the choice of the word Ekev. V'yeshma Rabbeinu Amru Shehu alatov haba b'achrona. The Ramban and the Even Ezra say Ekev means the end, just like the heel is the end of a person's body, right at the bottom, which means that the Ekev means Ekev shebesof Adam, and Torah is telling us that the Sechar is at the end of our lives, and on a more macro level, at the end of days. The end of days is the time when reward is to be given. V'yidatam. And according to these rabbis, which they say here is the Even Ezra and Ramban, who explain that it's all about focusing on the reward we get in the afterlife, or the end of days, the Torah is telling us, don't focus on the material reward we get for doing mitzvot. You should be focusing on the spiritual reward in Olam Haba. You should be focusing on the end reward. That's what you should be thinking about when you do the mitzvah. Even though the main focus is the reward in the world to come, you should know that, by the way, there is actually reward in this world as well. Even in this world, you won't be lacking in material success and wealth. You'll be blessed, and you'll be fruitful, and you'll have money blessings. So that's what the Ramban explains is the explanation of this pasuk, saying the truth is focus on Olam Haba, but then I'm telling you, by the way, you'll also receive shefa in this world. And I even saw some of the Mefarshim say that Ekev means a consequence, just like footsteps, one follows each other. So there's a certain, like for example, in Hebrew, when you want to say someone's consistent, you say he's ikvi. He has ikviut, which means that like he follows through. He's consistently doing the same thing. So the same in this context would mean that the sechar in this world is a natural follow-on, a natural consequence for doing mitzvot. Meaning, the world is only a livable place and a place of bounty and abundance if one does mitzvot. So it's not even a sechar. That's another way of understanding the difference between the sechar in this world and the sechar in Olam Haba. Olam Haba is actually the fact that we created spiritual worlds and lights, and that's what we're going to benefit and pleasure the holy spiritual pleasure of Olam Haba. Olam Hazeh is just the reality of the fact that we're living in a fixed way of living, and we're creating the world being a world that's a tikkun type of world, and that itself brings naturally, as a consequence, a plentiful way of life. So that's similar to what the Ramban is telling us, but a slightly different way of putting it into the pasuk. But what Rav Moshe is telling us is that the pasuk is focusing on both Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh, and saying your focus as a Jew should be at the end prize. Don't get distracted by the interim gifts we're given on the way. So now, according to this explanation, the Yitztak b'mamar Ramzeh amra v'haya. Why does it say v'haya? Shehu lo yibatzer miyot tova b'sof and ikra Ekev. So I'm not sure exactly how the explanation. So I think he's saying that v'haya means that it doesn't mean, like he said before, that v'haya has to mean something that is new and something that changed. He's saying v'haya means that it will be. You should trust. This is what will be. So don't you worry. V'haya, there will be at the end Ekev. At the end there will be sechar in Olam Haba, and therefore al ken al zot tishmeun. Therefore it is worthwhile for you to listen to the mitzvah. And another explanation of the word v'haya. V'chen b'mashi adan Rabbeinu zal ki kol makom shenemar v'haya. This is a famous midrash that every time it says v'haya in the Torah, hu simcha. V'haya is lashon simcha. So therefore, v'zeh yamer, according to this explanation that we're talking about, the reward of the world to come, Hinei simcha tiyeh be'ekev u'basof. The happiness will come at the end. Shehu simchat olam. Va'alav tishme'un k'mdubar. And that is the purpose. And this is interesting, what I think Moshe will bring it later on as well, is that we finished off last week's parasha, where it says, Hayom la'asotam. That Hashem is telling us, commanding us to do the mitzvot in this world. And the rabbis say, in this world we do, but in the next world, tomorrow, we receive reward. Right, so what is this saying? It's really saying a very interesting thing, which the Chazal writings are full of this, and this really answers the question of why wicked people prevail and righteous people suffer. And the idea is that a person that really gets the idea of what this world is for realizes that this world is one long doing job. And if we look at it on a micro level, every person that has an idea of what they want to build, what they want to create, right? So while the idea is in the thought stage and the planning stage, everything feels blissful and it's all like beautiful and you can really imagine the end result. But then you have to go down into action, and that's when it gets less exciting. So even though a Jewish soul, or every person, is fueled by the pleasure and the satisfaction that comes from doing, we have to throw ourselves into the world of imperfection, where things aren't complete, and deal with the struggle and the lack of imperfection, dealing with details. So we always tend to try and get out of that and go back to pleasure, which is sin, where we kind of want to ignore the work we need to do. So if we take this message of Hayom la'asotam, means in this world we're not looking to be happy. Happiness is not something that we believe is the purpose of this world. The purpose of this world is to do, because you should know at the end there'll be happiness. So it means that you shouldn't be chasing, right? That, you know, the famous, what's the American line? The right to pursuit of freedom and happiness. Is that the
life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
Pursuit of happiness, right? So that is the concept of, you know, the hedonistic Western values of happiness is the end goal, and it's true, but it's not the end goal in this world. This world is one long action-based thing, because it's going to be such a big project that the happiness at the end of that, you can't imagine, you know, in comparison to how long the work is. The happiness obviously comes in a greater fashion. So that's what he's telling us, that V'haya Ekev, the Simcha, which V'haya means Simcha, is at the end. Okay? So that's what we're explaining, Olam Haba. Beautiful. So we've moved away, we've gone up a level from physical reward, success in this world, to spiritual reward. Ach bazeh, says Rav Moshe, lo alta aruchat hakoshi atumo. It hasn't completely satisfied the question. Ki adayin yira'eh, ki lo manatanu ha-Torah. The Torah is only advising and telling us to not think about reward in this world. Hashem doesn't mind. Hashem's actually happy with us thinking about doing mitzvot in order to receive reward in Olam Haba. This is obvious. Ki tov mishneim yireh. What would be the even better option? La'avod et Hashem shalom adavar, to serve Hashem for no purpose, for no expectation of receiving anything in return. Rak lasot ritzono me'ahava shlema, to do Hashem's will out of complete love. Lasot nachat ruach litzro, to create, to give pleasure to our Creator. And this is a coming from the awareness of the fact that we are created, and we're created for a reason, and our reason is to give pleasure to our Creator. And because there is a relationship, there's love here, there's things beyond material reward, there's things beyond give and take, and in every real relationship it can't be based on give and take. It has to be based on an essential connection. So why is the Torah telling us to base our relationship of serving Hashem on any type of reward? So obviously we know that Hashem is trustworthy and He will do what He said and He'll give us the reward. But that's not our intention, right? It's a big difference with the attitude, like in every marriage, right? If the attitude is, oh, you did this for me yesterday, but this wasn't such a big thing, I can only do as much as I did, and then to expect a reward tomorrow, and then that's going to break down very quickly. But obviously, if you're in a good relationship and everyone does it for the sake of the other, then you can expect that the other person will obviously do it. But that's not what's it's centered around. Hashem, praised be He forever, is obviously trustworthy to pay us for our work, but that's not the purpose. So now we've basically, after discussing we've upgraded the arena of the discussion to spiritual rewards, but the question still remains: why is the Torah promoting ulterior motives or any type of motive which involves receiving for our work, for our service of God? So now we'll continue to question number 3. Amrot tishme'un ushmartem va'asitem. It starts off talking to the Jewish people as a plural. You should listen, you should do, you should observe. When it comes to the reward, it says God will keep his promise to you, not to you as in use, the plural. Number 4, please. Amra et hamishpatim. Why does the Torah choose to use the specific mishpatim out of the threesome, the trio of chukim u'mitzvot u'mishpatim?
Could you explain to us what is the difference between mitzvah and the category mishpatim and chukim? What's the third? Because I thought the mishpatim are things that we can understand, chukim is the things we can't understand.
Right.
So what's this third category of mitzvot?
Right. I saw the Ramban in last week's Parashat, where the pasuk talks about the wise son. Your son will ask you tomorrow, why are we doing the mitzvot, chukim, mishpatim? And there Ramban says, obviously chukim is what we don't understand. Mishpatim, he says, is really what we do understand, meaning like normal social justice, etc. And mitzvot, he describes there as commemorations that we do in order to serve Hashem, like tzitzit, tefillin, and Shabbat, and these types of things, which seem to be, I'm not sure exactly how to differentiate them from chukim, but they seem to be things we do for the service of God, as opposed to chukim, which are halachot, but they're not like directly commemorating God's. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's the direction. But yeah, it will be interesting to know. So here, for some reason, we're choosing only 1 out of 3. The previous parasha, we had actually the trio of chukim, mishpatim, and mitzvot, I think about 10 times at least. It was on and on. And actually Rav Hirsch points out a very interesting thing last week, that chukim is always mentioned first. And he says an interesting thing because the chukim are referring to sexual morality and kosher food and certain things that don't make any sense. Why? How does God care about that? But he says a very interesting thing. He says that the purpose of the Jewish people is to create a society of people that are not pulled in by their bodily whims, and they're able to be in control of their temptation, in order for them to live a moral, just society where the mishpatim can be carried out. And if a person doesn't keep the chukim, that means that they let their body take control, and then they also won't be able to remain moral in the just arena. So like chukim are like the training ground to create the space for moral people and just driven people to be able to exist. But here we're talking about just the justice without the chukim. Number 5, Amro ha'ele. These mishpatim. Shomu yutar ki mi lo yada ki mishpatei Hashem medaber. Or we're talking about the American law books. We're talking about Hashem's mishpatim. Ma'agam ki lo yizkuru bo mishpatim biyichud shizdak aleim milat ha'ele. He's not talking about specific mishpatim, individual ones. They can say these ones. He's talking about all of them. So what is he referring to? That by minimizing or by selecting specific ha'ele, and what is it coming to exclude? Number 6, ki achareyato atil lomar shmartem v'asitem. If the reward comes from observing and doing the mitzvot, ma tzorech haya lomar tishma'un. Obviously, if you're observing it, it means that you've heard it. Halo b'chla matay maneh. So why mention the step of listening to the mitzvot as a separate step in the process? Number 7, Amrov Shamar Shenirek Mosif Al Hatava Acheret K'mashmaut Havav. It says Vishamar, which sounds like, besides something that we've mentioned until now, another thing he'll do is to guard the covenant that he made with the forefathers. But V'halo Zot Hi Harishona, this is the first mention of reward. Imkin me haraui yomar yishmor lecha habrit. Vaya Ekev tishmon. When you listen to the mitzvot, yishmor lecha. That's the reward. Shi'anyan Ekev tishmon yishmor lecha. So the Vav seems to be an interesting way of saying that there's already a reward mentioned in the beginning of the parasha, and then the Shamar, there's another reward for something else. So what's going on here? It says number 8, Amra asher nishba ech yitachen yutan b'matan tzachar mitzvotenu ma shenishba lavatenu kvar. This is a very interesting question, where the pasuk says you're gonna do the mitzvot, and what are you going to get for that? Hashem's going to keep His covenant that He made with your forefathers. He made the covenant with the forefathers based on what they did. So why am I getting an old promise, kept for what I'm doing? I want something new, right? First of all, he has to do this anyway because he promised. So he's saying you could answer that he means to say Hashem doesn't have to keep the promise right now. He can keep the promise at some point. He didn't tell the forefathers which of their grandchildren will receive the reward he's talking about. So he's saying that I'll keep this promise to you. But gamze en tzarech haftacha. Ki lama yimnatu va'avod labanim olchim b'tamim. Hashem gave a promise to the avot that if their children will follow in their footsteps, they'll receive the reward of the covenant. So then that's automatically implemented when the grandchildren are living in those ways. So there's also no need to mention the fact that he will keep the covenant specifically as an actual reward for what they're doing. Rather, it's just an automatic implementation of something that he already promised. Number 9, Amro ve'ahevcha, and he'll love you. Everything we said until now was with no love. Now we're bringing in love. It should have said right at the beginning, if you do the mitzvot, he will love you and he'll keep the promise, right? Because the keeping of the promise and the giving of the reward is obviously in the context of love, right? The emotion kind of precedes the action. So if he's giving us the reward, it obviously is coming from an emotional place of love. So that should be the prefacing to the entire what?
Prerequisite.
Right. It's the prerequisite in it. Question number 10. Ki b'chlal amro obeirachacha hu amro v'hirbecha. So now the Moshe is gonna break down all these brachot we're getting, and explaining what he's going to ask it as a question, and be like, what is each one specifically introducing that isn't included already in the first one? So, beiracha, what is bracha? Bracha means abundance. That includes the fact that you'll be plentiful. It means that you'll be plentiful. What does that mean? It means that you'll have lots of children. So already in the first word is included all the following ones. So what is specifically included in the other ones? What's being added with the other blessings? Number 11, the same type of question now when it comes to the agriculture and the produce. It says the fruit of the land will be blessed, and then it says the your grain, your grape harvest, and your oil, your wine and your oil. So again, this is also specifying what is already included in the general term of whatever comes out of the ground. Number 12, Amro al ha'adama. Hashem says, I'm going to give you this blessing on the land that I promised to you, in the land of Israel. Which is obvious. This is the land that we're going to go into. Obviously, when the blessing will come, it will be in the place where the blessing should be coming, where we're supposed to be living. And not while we're in exile, because if we're in exile, it means we're not keeping the mitzvah. Number 13, the next bracha is that Hashem will remove all illness. Says the Rav Moshe, what do you mean? When I say that I'm going to give you all these blessings, it means that that includes that we've already gone from minus in the illness zone, we've gone out of illness, and we're already in the plus. So why are we suddenly going back into the illness situation if that seems to be already covered by the fact that we have blessing? If by positively adding reward he's giving us good, that includes already the fact that he'll remove any type of damage or harm that shouldn't befall us. And obviously that includes not receiving the afflictions of the bad, evil Egyptians. Number 14, what does it mean when the Pasuk says you should be blessed? Mikol ha'amim. So Mikol ha'amim can mean from the people, from the nations, or it could mean more than the nations. Mikol, right? More than or from. So he says either way, it makes no sense. So imhu sha'amim yivarchu etanu, if it means you'll be blessed from them, like they'll be giving you the blessing. Ma yitenu ma yasif lanu. Ma shnitbarech lepi basar v'dam. I don't need a human of flesh and blood to give me a blessing when Hashem's giving me a blessing. That's not going to add anything. If the other explanation of Mikol means that we'll be blessed more than them, obviously from Hashem, but it will be above and beyond what any other nation will receive as blessing. Will be more than the other nations will be blessed. How, that isn't even a cool thing. Like, it goes without saying it will be blessed without more than the other nations. Obviously, we'll receive more than the nations that are going against us will. It's like saying your wage will be higher than a criminal that's incarcerated right now. Obviously, like that, he's got nothing going for him. Tetvav, number 15. There will be no, what's the English translation for akar? Barren man? Barren woman?
Yeah, barren.
Barren. You will not be, there will be no barren within you. It seems to be the fact that you'll be blessed from all the nations, more than all the nations, that will mean that you won't have any barren amongst you. Number 16, so what's another question about this barrenness? Hashem gave us so many cool blessings, so much shefa and abundance. Until now we've been speaking about actual gifts that we received. And here we're talking about, there won't be any barrenness. So this is similar to the question we had before, question number 13, with removing illness. That we can't be, if after mentioning all the additional blessings that beyond just the regular, we can't go back to things that are just removing negative minuses. Number 17, you'll eat up the nations. How is this the follow-on from what is said until now? It's an interesting thing I saw in the Malbim. I think the Ramosha, I can't remember if Ramosha says this as well later on, that eating the nations is referring to the fact that the nations are our food, and just like trees feed off minerals in the ground, and animals feed off plants, and humans feed off animals, so too Jews feed off non-Jew humans. They are food, which is an interesting idea what that means exactly. I mean, it says in another pasuk that don't you worry about conquering the nations; they're your bread. So there is this concept of us consuming them. Right, yeah. So I mean, there is this concept that the food chain of the inanimate, the plants and the animals and the humans, and then there's the concept of a Jew being. I think Ramosha brings this up in other places. That a Jew is like kind of like another, actually the top of the pyramid in that sense. Number 18, Amroki Mokesh Hulach. Mokesh Hulach means he is a stumbling block before you. Ki Ra'u Yomar Ki Mokesh Hemlach. He's talking about all the nations. You should have said they are a stumbling block for you. Lashon Rabim, Al Kol Rabim Amim, and Amir Ma'amet, according to all of the nations, referring to all of the nations, not just one. Number 19, Ki Hine Yira'eh Mizeh. Ki Ekev Uschar HaMitzvot Hem Tovot HaOlam Hazeh. Based on all of these blessings, it sounds like, not like we said before from the Ramban, that the reward is in the world to come.
Sounds like the reward is
It
this.
sounds like, what is this? And obviously it's not like that. Ki im shchar mitzvot b'ha'al melech, as the Gemara says, the reward of mitzvot can't be in this world because it's too great for this world. K'mamar pasuk shebesof Parashat kodemet, hayom lasotam, as we mentioned before, the Parasha says, hayom lasotam, this world is just for doing. Machar lekabel scharam, right? Because in this world we can't actually grasp the reward of the mitzvot. Even though this question is not such a strong question, I would say, because the Ramban himself says that what he's saying is that Vaya Ekev Tishmon, the reward is in the world to come. And all of these things are just natural consequences of doing the mitzvah that are going to come as a byproduct almost. So it's kind of saying, think about how great the reward is if it's like when you work for someone and you have lunch on the house. So if like the lunch is like a 5-course meal, you can imagine what the wage is. So like we're saying that this is all just in the meantime, so that's going to tell us how much the reward is. But here we're saying that you wouldn't go into such long detail describing the byproduct. It seems like this is what we're trying to say. Okay, so here we get to it. Omnam, this is clear, like we said before, that obviously reward for mitzvot is not in this world. Hinei mitzvot yichalku sogim rabim. So now we're going to go back to referring to the fact that there's more than one type of mitzvah. Yesh mitzvot, v'yesh chukim, v'yesh mishpatim. 3 different types of commandments. V'chen b'minei tovot yesh 3 chalakim. There's 3 types of reward. Yesh tovot olam hazeh, reward in this world. Yesh tovot olam haba, there is the reward of the world to come. V'yesh pirot hamitzvot b'olam hazeh. There's the interest or the profit of the mitzvot in olam hazeh. So, right? What we do is we do mitzvot, which is an investment in the world to come bank. But we obviously that's being invested, but then we get the profits and we're gaining interest on those mitzvot, and we receive them in this world.
Do we know which is which?
Do you know which is which?
Like, the 3 mitzvot in 3 categories. 3 categories of reward.
Right, so that's what he's going to say now, I believe. I think so, at least. So he says that at the end of last parasha, in the pasuk shebesof Parashat kodemet, tzivanu la'asat 3 sugei mitzvot. It says, "V'shamarta et mitzvah, chukim mishpatim, v'al shloshtam amar yom lasotam." All 3 of these things, shelo yekavu scharam b'olam hazeh, don't expect reward for it in this world. Kiyim hayom lasotam, ach machar lekabel scharam. The reward is tomorrow in the world to come.
But you just said there are certain things that the reward is in this world.
Right.
I don't understand.
So we'll get to it. That's the discussion coming to it, I believe. A person might get a bit sour from this, he'll feel let down. I've got 70, 80, 90, 100 years of living in this world, really overcoming my human self to serve Hashem, and I can't expect anything. It's a bit harsh. So you're saying, okay, maybe you're saying that mitzvot are so spiritual, so beyond this world, that I can't expect to see the result of it in this world because it's just not it's just not relevant to this world. The lights that the mitzvahs bring are just not connected to what this world has to offer. But at least one thing you can do to me, to strengthen the heart of those who are doing the right thing, to see some kind of appreciation, of acknowledgement from Hashem that they're receiving reward, at least that they should know that Hashem is actually out there, receiving those mitzvot, and he's actually, going to give us something for it, just some kind of token sachar, just to be able to continue going. Mm-hmm. So therefore, says Rav Moshe, another thing. Right, just before we get to the answer of that, another thing that will cause people to struggle with mitzvot. Hashem puts them all into one boat. So they're all considered one. Not only that, mishpatim is last. But the problem is that people will feel like Allah dat nota. If you do justice in this world, which makes sense and logical, it's for the greater good of people. U'ma en lo sachar b'malam. He shouldn't receive any reward. How can you expect to receive reward when you just do something that's logically correct? Right? Anything that the human logic can come up with as the right, as the ultimate good, which is really the you could say the postmodernist religions of atheism and the kind of idea of like there is no good and bad. All there is the the collective good, what was going to bring good to the most people, and that's kind of not. It's kind of denying the concept of mitzvot. It's just saying we've got to live in a world that works. Otherwise, we're going to live in the jungle. So that's not a mitzvah. We would have done it even without the Torah. So therefore, in order to address these two concerns, so Vaya Ekev, this week's parasha is a follow-on to address two concerns on the last pasuk of last week's parasha. Lomar ha'oleh al ruchachem ki en shum sachar b'olam hazeh. The fact that you understood from what I said last week's parasha that there is no reward in this world. Lochen was not true. There is reward in this world. Ki alo yesh bechina achat. There is one version of reward in this world. Shel sachar mitzvot sheyeshno b'olam hazeh shebehem yakir asher de'akana. Through which a man who has received and is able to he's acquired knowledge and discernment in this world, that he's from this type of reward, we are able to acknowledge and realize that Hashem is receiving our mitzvot and He's with us and He's giving us this token acknowledgement of our mitzvot. V'hu ma'amar Tana. This is what the Tana says in Masechet Avot. Schar mitzvah, mitzvah. The reward of one mitzvah is the ability and the desire that is created through doing mitzvah to do another mitzvah. V'hu ki ha'oseh mitzvah achat. One who does one mitzvah mezakin lo she'yaseh acheret letov lo. Once you've got onto the mitzvah train, there'll be many more mitzvot following on. Ki mitzvah goreret mitzvah. One mitzvah pulls in another mitzvah. Rav Tov Tzfat Israel, and there's so much good waiting for the Jewish people. Hagmul alaz, the reward for all these mitzvot. Shemafligin lo b'ashro b'olam haba, because he'll have an unlimited amount of happiness in olam haba after all of these mitzvot. Ubazeh hachai yitena libo. A man will pay attention to this. The fact that Hashem birotov she'achar sato mitzvah achat. The fact that I've done one mitzvah, tizdamen lo lasot ke'etzeba, will receive another mitzvah, and we see how the pattern is unfolding, and how Hashem's giving us more opportunities to receive reward in Olam Haba. And that will give us the awareness and the reassurance, ki enze kiyim kasher Hashem ito, Hashem's with us, and He's actually paying attention to what we're doing. Me'ir lo ora shetuvo. Hashem is lighting up our life with His light, His good happiness. Hashem merchin lo Olam Haba. He's giving him opportunity to create happiness. It's like they say, the rich get richer. And once you've got the first million, you can get to the billion. Because, so like once you're doing mitzvot, then you're already getting into that pattern. And Hashem's, giving us more investments. And I think it's a very powerful thing, because like the more we do mitzvot, we actually avail ourselves more to be spiritually motivated, to be attracted by mitzvot, and that's slowly kind of peeling off onion layers of laziness and body things, and that actually then we actually see the mitzvot, and we're like, oh, I can do that, and it's like we see them as opportunities instead of burdens.
So those are the rewards in this world.
Right, it's kind of a little bit
the dividends.
Right.
The dividends we're receiving for our investments that are for the future, but these are the dividends.
Right, we're being invited to the the early rounds of angel investors. Not everybody gets invited to invest in. So we're seen as a credible person to be given opportunity to invest in the future. So therefore, meaning again, if we understood the question on like it's not fair, I want to receive candy for what I'm doing straight away, that he didn't answer that question. It's not like I'm going to give in to you and say, you know what, you deserve a sticker from the dentist. Like, it's not what we're looking for. We're staying with the big-minded mindset of like mitzvot or spiritual, and the purpose of mitzvot. We're not getting distracted by thinking that suddenly mitzvot should receive physical reward. But we're saying that we need to have that siyata d'shmaya, the feeling of Hashem is with us, and that happens through doing mitzvot. Okay, so v'zeh vaya Ekev. Vaya Ekev. This parasha begins as a follow-on to last week's parasha. Lomar to say the following. Gam shamarti ayom lasotam. I have just finished off the parasha, last pasuk, saying that this world is only for doing. Why? Because schar mitzvah b'haya maleka, this world is unfit to receive the reward that mitzvot have. Hinei vaya Ekev. Ki gam ye Ekev v'sachar po. There will be some kind of reward in this world. V'hu Yischar mitzvah, you'll receive another reward. And he says that's why this answers the first two questions. Vahaya means that it will become something new will come from the first thing. Meaning it will be, what will be the new thing? The one mitzvah will create a new opportunity for another mitzvah. And therefore, because it's not real reward, it's not sachar. The reward is in the world to come. But because we're talking about the reward in this world, which is the opportunity to do another mitzvah, we're calling it Ekev, which you can kind of say is like footsteps as well. One mitzvah leads to another mitzvah, like one footstep leads to the next.
Very nice.
Chazaku Baruch.